What is up, everyone? Today I am back after a week-long break. I had to go under the knife a little bit, but I'm back. UFC 308. I'm breaking down the entire card. Starting off, Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. I feel like I'm kind of alone on this one. Not for my prediction, but I don't know why. I just want Ilia to win. I know everyone wants Max to win. I like Max. But even against Gaethje, I'm not going to lie, I was pissed. I was pissed when he knocked out Gaethje. And I don't even like Gaethje. I don't know why I always root against Holloway, but I just like Ilia more. I have a feeling that Max could definitely get it done. This is, a type of matchup where he could, shock everyone again. Kind of like the Jose Aldo fight, but I don't know. I'm going to go with Ilia. There's a few reasons. Some of the ones that aren't, very technical is I see some people picking like Max and Whittaker and stuff. It's just people that are picking those two. It's like, do you really think that they're going to win? It's like they can win, but it's just not in the script. Are we actually going to get Max Holloway versus Volk 4 in Australia? I just can't wrap my head around that. I can't imagine them making that matchup. It would throw the UFC completely off. Same with Whittaker. Are we really expecting Whittaker versus Dricus, the rematch for the belt? Or like Whittaker versus Strickland for the belt? I just can't imagine that. Or like Whittaker versus Adesanya, the trilogy, co-main event 5 rounds. I don't know. I just can't personally imagine that. Now, breaking down the actual fight, I'm going with Ilia for a few reasons. I know most people are picking him, but I just feel like Holloway, not only does he have to be, he doesn't have to be perfect, like some people are saying, but he has to be close to perfect. I also think that his kicks, I don't think that they're that good, I'm going to be honest. Outside of maybe his body kick that he could actually use in this fight, and I guess the teeps, but those are kicks that you can only use for so long. And again, it's hard to win a fight, just ask Strickland. It's hard to win a 5-round fight if one guy causes a bunch of damage and you're over here just throwing a bunch of teep kicks. It's not easy to do. Also, even Volk. I think Volk has faster kicks, better kicks, and they didn't do anything to Ilia. If you rewatch the Ilia versus Volk fight, anytime Ilia landed a kick, it literally spun Volk around. He was like a ballerina. He was just, doing a 360. Holloway, I don't think his kicks are going to be all that. And if anything, his spinning back kick to the body that he throws a lot, yes, it could, once in a blue moon, like it did against Gaethje, break someone's nose. But that's not like a kick that you could throw that much. Realistically, how many times is he going to throw that? No more than once a round. And I suspect that, if he keeps on throwing that kick more than once or twice, I think Ilia is going to jump on his back or at least beat him up. Sort of like the Shevchenko-Grasso situation. And, spoiler, that may be how I'm picking him, but still, I think that's another thing that Ilia could do if Max Holloway keeps it up, keeps spinning in circles, whatever. Max also is very hittable. He's been hit a lot. He's been hurt a lot. I know people talk about his granite chin, but he's human. He's still human. He got rocked versus Poirier in, I think, the first round, maybe the second. He got rocked versus the Korean Zombie in the first round. He literally got hurt immediately in 2023 against the Korean Zombie. And the only reason, the Korean Zombie didn't really put it on him once he hurt him is because he has no chin and he got chinned immediately and was like, okay, I need to relax. I think Ilia is a lot more durable. We've only seen him hurt one time and he arguably came back and won the round. He immediately shot a takedown. I think Ilia is very smart also. When he was going for broke in the 5th round, he needed a finish. Ilia was like, okay, I'm not going to play his game. I've been, swinging in the pocket the whole fight. I'm just going to duck under, get the takedown, and control him. And he did. He controlled Emmett a lot, who's a good defensive wrestler. I think Ilia will also mix up the takedowns. I think it's going to be kind of like the Adesanya versus Dricus fight, where one fighter is really mixing it up well, while the other one is, kind of outlanding him, but because of the takedowns and the damage, it's, pretty close in the scoring. I think we're going to see a lot of close rounds in this fight. I think it's going to be hard to judge. I think if it goes to a decision, I'm calling it right now, it's going to go to Ilia, and people are going to be saying it's a robbery, even if it's not a robbery, just because they like Max. I think Ilia also has good cardio. He was pushing the pace in the 5th round. He has 5-round cardio. His body shot, I don't think he's going to finish him with a body shot, but the body shots are there. Gaethje was also putting Max up against the fence a few times in their fight, and Gaethje isn't really the type of guy to finish against the fence. He's not as good as someone like a Ilia Topuria. But yeah, also the weight cut back down to 145, and I'll just say this. If there was ever a moment Max Holloway is going to get knocked out, it's going to be this fight. If he doesn't get knocked out in this fight, he will never, ever get knocked out. I'm confident he's going to get knocked down. I don't know if he's going to get knocked out. But my official prediction, I'm going with Ilia. I've been picking him. I've been saying Ilia would beat Max before he even got the belt. So I have to stick with it. I'm going to say by finish. I'm going to go with submission. The 4th round, why not? Submission. It could either be knockout, decision, whatever. But I'm just going to be different, say submission. Moving on, Whittaker versus Khamzat. Just like the last one, a lot of people are picking Whittaker, even though he's the underdog. I'm going with Khamzat. Again, I always end up switching my picks, and then I get it wrong. I'm not switching my pick like I did with Diego Lopez. I'm saying Khamzat. Whittaker could definitely win. I don't think that he's faced an MMA grappler on the level of Khamzat. I don't know if there is a grappler on the level of Khamzat. And I think that Chimaev, I don't think his gas tank is that bad. People who are picking Whittaker and Holloway are kind of saying the same things. Like, oh, he's going to beat him in the 5th round because the Ilia and Khamzat are going to gas. I think Khamzat has underrated cardio. In his last fight, he didn't look good. I get he broke his hand, whatever. But in that 3rd round versus Gilbert Burns at 170, where his gas tank is going to be worse, yes, he was tired at the end of 3. Crazy pace. But he was pushing the pace. He had better cardio in that fight than Burns, believe it or not. Even in the 3rd round against Usman, he arguably won the 3rd round, close round. But he was pushing the pace. He was swinging big. His cardio isn't as bad as people say, and I think that he's not going to run across the cage in this fight. I don't think that he's going to be as high pace. He knows his 5 rounds. He has his old team back training at elevation. Whittaker, though, he's had 2 camps for him. I get Khamzat, you could say the same thing. Whittaker, 2 wrestling camps. He's already a good wrestler. It's going to be hard to take him down. I don't think that Khamzat is going to finish him in the 1st round. I think that this fight could go into the 5th round, 4th round, and I would still pick Khamzat. I do think Khamzat's going to finish him, though. I think that this is going to be a very close fight. I think that this is going to be the best we've ever seen either of these fighters. And I think that Khamzat is going to knock him out, TKO, not like, a mounted ground and pound, anything like that. I just think that he's eventually going to catch Whittaker because Khamzat has a very good chin, and I don't think Whittaker is going to hurt him. But I assume Khamzat could hurt Whittaker. Yes, Khamzat couldn't hurt Usman, but Usman didn't have to weight cut. And Usman, despite the Leon fight, he has a great chin. I'm going to say 3rd round TKO. I could honestly see a Khamzat decision, too. The judges are going to favor him. You have to keep that in mind. So yeah, this is a fight, just like the other fight. Even, again, people that are picking Whittaker and Holloway, both of them, it's like, no, the world is too cruel to let both of those 2 win. It's only going to be one. But in this case, I'm saying neither is going to win. I'm picking Khamzat. Moving on, Lerone Murphy, Dan Ige. I'm going with Lerone Murphy. I think that Lerone showed great cardio in his last fight against Barboza. Barboza fought like an idiot, didn't use any of his kicks. But regardless, again, it's like Usman not wrestling. It's just stupid stuff. Like, how are you not going to use your best weapon? It's just so stupid. But Lerone, he looked great in his last fight against Barboza, who's still a good striker. Ige, also a very powerful striker. And Ige can't be finished. We know that he's not going to get knocked out. Lerone is obviously not going to knock out Ige, but Ige could knock out Murphy, which I think is his way to win. I just believe that, Ige is, he's good. He keeps a high guard sometimes, so I think if Lerone, gets some body shots in, I think that's a very good, I think that's how he kind of wins, starts low, goes high. I just think that he's the better striker. Dan Ige was getting hit by Bryce Mitchell, who's not the worst striker, but still. Also, the main thing for this fight I just want to talk about is Ige. I know people say, oh, he looked, pretty good in his last fight on 1 hour's notice, which is true. But that's your absolute peak. 2 weeks before your fight. You just finished training camp. He was training to fight in Denver, I believe. And he doesn't have to cut weight. And Lopez had to do 3 weight cuts. Or 3 different weigh-ins. So if anything, I think Ige was actually at an advantage. And Lerone doesn't have the style like Lopez, where he kind of relies on finishing him in the first round, which I think is at a disadvantage. And even then, he still lost. Lerone isn't really going to go for the finish. He's just kind of going to outpoint you, outvolume you. I think that's how you beat Dan Ige. So I'm going with Murphy in this fight. Ankalaev versus Rakic. I want to pick Rakic so bad, but I know he's going to lose, He's a plus 300 underdog, which is insane. Ankalaev, these are two, in my opinion, of the top 2 skilled guys in the division. I think that in terms of well-roundedness, these are the top 2. And Rakic looked good in his last fight. But again, it's against Yuri, who's, dangerous. He knocked out Rakic. But he's not that good defensively. He's one of the worst defensive fighters I've ever seen. Rakic, he hasn't fought very often. He had a knee injury. But he was on his way to winning that fight versus Jan. He actually was out-grappling him, controlled him for 3-4 minutes in the second round, and then blows out his knee in the third after a very close first round. I think that there's not going to be a ton of wrestling in this fight. This is going to be a stand-up fight. Ankalaev doesn't even shoot that many takedowns as it is, but against Rakic, I don't really think he's going to have much success. I think Ankalaev has the better gas tank. If you get a 10-8 in the 5th round, you have an amazing gas tank. Yes, the leg kicks, Rakic is going to be chewing up Ankalaev's legs in the first round. I think Rakic is going to win the first round. But leg kicks don't really phase Ankalaev. Again, I get it's because he was shooting takedowns. And, now that I think about it, I may pick Rakic because how he got out of the leg kick situation is by shooting on Jan. And he's not going to have much success shooting against Rakic. But Abu Dhabi judges, it's a very hard fight to predict. The odds for all these fights, they wouldn't tell you that. They would tell you that there's a clear winner. I don't really think so. I think that Ankalaev's definitely going to win the third because of his gas tank. I don't think that Ankalaev's going to knock him out. He could. Rakic took a ton of damage. But I'm going to have to go with Ankalaev. It's just, again, it's destiny for him to win. It's in the script. Rakic isn't going to win, unfortunately. I'm saying a split 29-28 for Ankalaev. Or actually, no, unanimous because it's Abu Dhabi. It's going to come down to the second round. That's going to be the swing round. And people are going to be saying, oh, Ankalaev doesn't deserve a title shot afterwards. Even though he shouldn't have even had to fight Rakic. But anyway, moving on. Opening up the main card, Shara Bullet versus Armen Petrosyan. I'm going Shara Bullet. This is his toughest fight yet. Armen is actually very similar to Shara, which I think is almost a disadvantage. He's also a very kick-heavy guy. I don't know. I think that both of these guys have very good kicks. It's just going to be, a kicking battle between these two. And Shara's only weakness we've seen so far is his grappling, which even then he was landing crazy, slicing elbows off of his back. I think Armen is actually going to be on the front foot in this fight, even though that's not new to Shara. Shara does great on his back foot, that doesn't really eliminate his kicks as much as you would expect. He's already had to face that problem. And, Armen, he's beat a lot of good guys. He beat Christian Leroy Duncan, who's good. He beat Gregory Rodriguez, who's good. He lost to Baralho, which he just got out-grappled, The reason I'm picking Shara is because in order to beat Shara, if you're not a dominant grappler, you at least have to mix it in. Armen is not a high enough level grappler to mix it in, so he's going to have to outstrike him on the feet, which I think what's going to happen is Shara, it's going to be a 30-27, and every round he's going to outstrike him by just a few strikes. The prelim headliner, Geoff Neal versus RDA. I'm going to go with Geoff Neal. RDA, I don't think he's completely washed. I actually think that he still somewhat has it, except he's 40 years old. 40 years old. Geoff Neal, he's obviously the better boxer, better on the feet. RDA, he got finished by Fiziev, who's not that powerful. I'm just going to go with Geoff Neal. Geoff Neal, he seems like the type of guy where every other fight, he has a super exciting fight, then a boring fight. Then super exciting, then boring. We got a boring fight last time out of him. A horrible performance against Ian Gary. RDA isn't Ian Gary, though. He should win this. And if you're losing to RDA in 2024, I don't even know what to say. Geoff Neal isn't even that old. He's 34 or something. Still in his prime. I'm going with Geoff Neal. I'm going to say by decision. All right, this fight. Rebecki versus Orolbai. I'm going to go with Orolbai. I'm tempted to pick him by finish, but I'm probably going to say by decision. Orolbai, he's faced actually very good competition. He faced Brenner and Medic, I think. I think he's 2-0 in the UFC. And those are, for your first two fights in the UFC, that's pretty impressive. And he looked great in both of those fights. He hurt Brenner multiple times. Rebecki, he starts very fast. He's very dangerous in the first round. He does slow down. He slowed down a ton. He completely gassed out in his last fight. Got finished. He took a ton of damage. I think Rebecki, he's gonna start off with his crazy kicks. I think he's gonna gain momentum. But Orolbai, I think that he's gonna counter everything that Rebecki throws, which is shooting a takedown. Where I think that Orolbai is just gonna slow down the fight in the first round, and once he slows down the fight, he's gonna take over in the second, third round. Orolbai has a ton of power. Rebecki, it's a shame that he kind of got fraud checked in his last fight. But yeah, I forgot the guy's name. I think it's the guy that Rebecki faced in his UFC debut. I think it's Fori, something like that. And he got taken down by him. He got taken down. And Orolbai is a way better grappler than that guy. So I think Orolbai will be able to take him down. Actually, no, I'm going to go Orolbai by third round finish, TKO. Similar to how Rebecki's last fight went, except way less success for Rebecki in the first and second. But yeah, moving on. Said Nurmagomedov versus Daniel Santos. Unfortunately, this fight got canceled. Santos pulled out. I wish I would have known that before. I looked up Santos' entire career and watched, every fight of his entire career. But regardless, how this fight would have went, I actually was tempted to pick Santos. Said has very good head kicks, and Santos is allergic to head kicks. I feel like he gets wobbled in every one of his fights by a head kick, but he doesn't get finished. Said, I don't think his gas tank is that great. Santos is a very good defensive grappler, great get-up ability. I don't think that Said would be able to really control him all that well. Maybe he could get a random submission if Santos shot. But yeah, I was excited for this fight. I was thinking about picking Santos. But yeah, unfortunately the fight's no longer happening. But yeah, moving on. Oh, but whoever Said faces, I'm just going to pick him, just for my official prediction. Abus versus Bruno Ferreira. Another close fight. I'm picking Abus. Gas tank is horrible. But Bruno, he's kind of a, he has a ton of power, ton of finishing ability, but he gets hurt, I feel like, in almost all of his fights. He didn't look that great in his last fight either. I get he got the finish, but he didn't look that great. I think that Abus, his cardio is bad, but it's not as bad. His cardio looked better in his last fight. He fought a lot smarter. He didn't really empty the tank in the first round, and he was able to mix in the grappling. And yeah, I just think that because Bruno gets hurt a ton and Abus hits really hard, I just think it's kind of a recipe for disaster. And I don't think that he looked that impressive versus Stolfus or whatever, who Abus, his fight versus Stolfus, he knocked him out immediately. And Bruno kind of struggled against him, had like a very close fight. I'm going with Abus. I think he's a little bit better on the feet as well. And I think Bruno, he gets hurt a lot. Abus has a ton of power. I'm going to go with a first round TKO for Abus. All right, Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Chris Barnett. Coming back after like a 3-year-long layoff. He was supposed to fight a few weeks ago, I think, or maybe last week. But, he had an issue with his home in Florida. He's coming back. I'm going to go with Kennedy, lighter man skill. I want Barnett to win, and he could win. Kennedy, he's chinny. Barnett, could throw a crazy kick like last time. But he hasn't really beat anyone good, Barnett, and he's lost to guys that aren't good. And even in his last fight that he won, he was losing that fight. He did not look very good. But yeah, I think Kennedy, this kind of this is an easy fight to predict. I'm going with him by like a second round TKO. We have one of the Basharat bros versus Victor Hugo. I'm going with Farid Basharat. Victor Hugo, I know a lot of people are saying, he could fraud check him, he's the guy. Which Hugo is good. I think he is good. I think Farid is just such a better grappler. He was able to take down guys like Blackshear, who's literally a grappler himself. That's how Blackshear wins fights. He's not a can either. I get he just got knocked out in like 10 seconds, but that's a good way to lose, He didn't get outclassed, he just got knocked out. He also took down Lapulus, where if you look at Lapulus's takedown defense, you think, maybe he's not the brick wall takedown defense guy that we thought. The reason his takedown defense isn't perfect is because of Basharat. Took him down multiple times, and he looked good on the feet. Hugo, I think he's a little bit better on the feet. He has good kicks. He has fast hands. He could survive. And he does carry power late. So this is dangerous for Basharat. I think the only way Basharat loses, though, is if he gets knocked out cold late, like third round. But Hugo, he got taken down by, I think his name, it's like Falco, something like that. He got taken down by him, who, again, is nowhere near the level of grappler Basharat is. I think Basharat's going to take him down multiple times. The only way Basharat loses is if somehow he gasses out, and in the last few minutes of the third round, Hugo just finds the shot. But I'm going to go with Basharat. I'm going to go with him by decision, out-grappling him. But yeah, moving on. Bruno Silva versus Ismail. I'm going Bruno Silva. I looked at Ismail. I looked at a few of his fights. And he does have really good kicks. He has really good leg kicks. I'll give him that. He does look fast-twitched. With that being said, there's nothing really that stands out to me. Like, I think he got taken down a few times. He's been submitted before. Bruno Silva isn't necessarily an elite grappler. But, he took down, I think he fought Shara Bullet and he took him down in the third round. So he knows when to grapple. Ismail is also, he's a little bit chinny. He's been knocked out before. Bruno Silva is washed. Bruno Silva is trash. Bruno Silva looked horrible in his last fight versus Weidman. Granted, he only had one eye in that fight because the dirty cheater, Chris Weidman, couldn't keep his fingers to himself. But yeah, I'm going Bruno Silva. A lot of these guys, that step in on short notice versus kind of like wash guys like Kutalaba, Bruno Silva, they usually don't do that well. Ismail, I think he was in the UFC before. He got cut. If Bruno Silva can't beat this guy, then that's probably the last fight of his MMA career. But I'm going to go with him. It's tough because he's not good, but I'm still going to pick him to win. But yeah, moving on. We have Rinat Fakhretdinov versus Carlos Leal. Another guy, I believe, stepping up on short notice. We don't really know much about Carlos Leal. He's a powerful guy. He has a ton of knockouts. I'm still going to go with Rinat. I do think Carlos Leal has faced decent competition. If you look at the record of the guys he's faced and knocked out, it's like, oh, that guy's actually like not a can. He's like 21-7 or like 18-9. Like, oh, these guys aren't awful that he's knocking out. So he's not facing tomato cans. It is a short notice fight though. Rinat, very powerful on the feet. Also a good grappler. His only issue is his cardio. His cardio is atrocious. But I think that he's going to be able to get the finish first round, maybe second round. I think he's going to mix in the grappling. He's going to establish the threat and probably knock him out in the second round. But Leal, he's dangerous. He's dangerous. But I'm going to go with Rinat. Second round TKO. I believe this is opening up the prelims. Last fight, Aslan versus Rafael. Rafael, again, another guy I think stepping up on short notice, I think. I'm going to go with Aslan. He is hittable. In his last fight, he got hit a lot, but he has a very good chin and also has very good cardio. He knocked out, I forgot the guy's name, but he knocked him out late, I think in the third round. They both, before the UFC have, finished pretty much cans, guys that are 0-3. They both are can crushers in, I believe, the regional scene. But now, at least we know that Aslan can win in the UFC. Rafael, we don't know how he is in the UFC. So, just for that reason, I'm going to pick Aslan. Rafael, I think I watched a few of his fights too. He has very good body kicks. Maybe he finishes with a body kick, but I don't think so. I think Aslan is going to be able to survive. Good cardio. I think he's probably going to finish him late again. I'm going to say third round KO because he carries power late into the fight. But yeah, I think that's it for me. That's all the predictions. This was a long one. This is like a 14-15 fight card. But yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if you think Holloway, Topuria, who's going to win. I have Topuria, but yeah, that is it for me.